Hello and welcome to another episode of Whispers from the Campfire, where the flames of our stories cast shadows on the unknown. I'm your guide through the eerie and the unexplained. Tonight, gather close as we delve into stories of objects that leave people a lot more worse off than before they encountered them. Let's explore 3 supposed cursed objects and their haunting history. The first object we're going to look at is known as the Black Orlov Diamond, or the Eye of Brahma, and it is a story that continues to captivate those who hear its tale, and also remains a story of contention. The story originates from India in the 19th century, where it is told the diamond was once the eye in a statue of Brahma. Brahma is the Hindu god of creation who is also known as the grandfather, and as a later equivalent of Prajapati, the primeval first god. The statue of Brahma where the diamond was located in a shrine in Pondicherry, southern India. People say that a wandering monk took the diamond from the statue, and this is believed to be how the diamond became cursed. The Black Orlov diamond is the 7th largest black diamond ever discovered. It was originally a 195 carat piece that was later cut down, with the biggest piece now being 67.5 carats. There are many stories of death attributed to this diamond. Its movement around the globe is hazy at best. The diamond is believed to have found its way into the property of a Russian heiress of the name Nadia Vajinorlov. However, there is no proof of her existence, and this is supposedly where the name of the diamond came from. Nadia fled Russia during the 1917 revolution and ended up in France, however did not meet her demise until later. It is unknown where the diamond travelled next, but it is believed that it came into the possession of a Leonila Viktorovna Baratinsky, or Leonila Galistine Baratinsky, depending on source. It is not known what time frame she was in possession of the diamond, nor is her story fully clear. However, once again, nothing had come of her until the diamond ended up in the hands of one J.W. Paris, who imported it to the United States from an unknown source. He quickly sold the diamond, and shortly thereafter, on April 7th, 1932, he made his way to the top of a Manhattan skyscraper and jumped to his death. The diamond's next victims came in 1947, where both Nadia and Leonila seemingly committed suicide from jumping off of a skyscraper, now leading to 3 deaths from those who had possession of the diamond in some aspect. From here, in the 1950s, the stone was sold to a man by the name of Charles Wilson. Charles was responsible for the recut of the stone into 3 smaller stones in an attempt to break the supposed curse. The largest of these cuts, which is now known as the Black Orlov, was kept by him until it was sold to Dennis Petimisis in 2004. Nothing ill came of Charles, and Dennis would later showcase the diamond in several notable events before selling it in 2006. The diamond was sold into private ownership and was shown in the American Museum of Natural History, and is currently in the Natural History Museum in London. Most people are confident the curse is broken, but much like Nadia and Leonila, our previous owners just awaiting their fate. Our next cursed object is one Busby's stoop chair, also known as Dead Man's Chair, which is, as you can guess, an old wooden chair associated with one Thomas Busby. Thomas was the stepson of Daniel Awati. Daniel was a coin flipper and forger who dabbled in some illegal activities, creating coins with the king's gold sovereign. Daniel would work by himself until one day, Thomas joined in his operation. Thomas was known to be a fighter and an alcoholic, and in 1702 on one fateful night, Thomas returned home from drinking to see Daniel sitting in his favourite chair. This led to a fight between Daniel and Thomas, and after this encounter, Daniel threatened to kidnap Thomas's daughter, although this could never be substantiated. The next night, once things settled, for an unknown reason, Thomas bludgeoned Daniel to death in a state of rage, killing Daniel with a hammer. Thomas was caught, tried, and condemned to hang. It is said on his way to his death, he cursed anyone who sat in his chair, and declared death would come quickly to anyone who sat in it. Since his fateful words, the workshop that was made by Daniel for his activities was transformed into Busby's Stoop Inn, where people went to marvel in the ominous sight of the chair. Many believe the chair is indeed cursed and has caused numerous deaths over the years, The first recorded death of the chair was in 1894. A local chimney sweep was said to have taken a break by sitting in Busby's stoop. Shortly after leaving the pub, the sweep died of mysterious circumstances. The cause of his death varies. One account states he was found hanging from a gatepost the next morning, but it remains that he had sat in Busby's stoop prior to his death. Following this, during the Second World War, stories tell of Canadian airmen from Skitterphoto Air Base who went to see the chair. The men would joke and try to get each other to sit in the chair. In the end, multiple men did sit in Busby's stoop, and of those who did, none of them returned home from their bombing missions over mainland Europe. In 1968, prior to a Thomas Earnshaw owning the pub, 2 airmen dared each other to sit in the chair. They both did, and on driving back to the airbase, their car left the road and crashed into a tree, killing them both. At this stage, the chair's legend grew. In the early 1970s, the chair seemed to claim a number of victims, including a cleaning lady who was diagnosed with a brain tumour after knocking into the chair, a number of cyclists and motorists who suffered fatal road accidents, a hitchhiker who was run over after having spent 2 nights in the pub, a local man who died of a heart attack shortly after sitting in the condemned chair. But are these mere coincidences? You can decide. After this, a group of builders having a drink at the pub coerced the youngest member of their group into sitting in the chair. Back at the building site, the man fell through the roof of the building and landed on the concrete ground below. This death proved to be the final straw for Earnshaw, and he banished the chair to the cellar before it took one last victim, a delivery man who sat in the chair during one of his rounds. Afterwards, his van crashed and killed the delivery driver. In 1978, to prevent any further deaths, Earnshaw donated the chair to Thirsk History Museum, where it was placed on a wall above the ground so no one else could fall victim to its curse. Would you feel brave enough to sit in Busby's chair? Let me know in the comments. The last cursed object we're going to discuss is a well-known story. So if ever you thought you may be safe in your bed at night, the tale of Tall Man's bunk bed may challenge your beliefs. In 1987, couple Alan and Deborah brought home a bunk bed which they were attracted to at a second-hand shop. They set up the bed for their children and moved it upstairs. The children were excited to sleep in their new bed, however this is where the horrors began. The children started to become sick regularly, children who were never sick before. Their son Danny had a room next to where the bunk beds were situated. On the night that they moved the bed upstairs, and as soon as they said goodnight to Danny, his radio turned itself on. It started to change channels on its own, marking the beginning of the haunting encounters. A few weeks went by and Alan was painting downstairs. He placed the brush on a table next to him and went upstairs for lunch. On returning, he saw the paintbrush in the bucket with the bristles facing up. At this stage, it doesn't appear that any concern was expressed, and so the incident has continued. Their daughter, asleep one night in bed, awoke in terror as she swore she could see a red-eyed witch behind her door. And a month later, the son Danny saw the same apparition. This would terrorize the family in regular occurrences, and at this point, the family finally decided to call their pastor, a Reverend Wayne de Bratz. The Reverend walked through the house. He then voiced his worries as there felt to be the presence of something evil, some say the devil. He blessed the house and left. Despite this, the activity continued. Doors would slam shut, strange voices would be heard, and the apparitions continued. A week before Christmas, Danny saw something horrifying, of which is not detailed, but it caused so much horror that the kids did not want to stay in the house. In a bout of frustration, Alan yelled at the spirit to get out of his house and antagonized it that if it wanted to fight someone, it could fight him. But nothing happened until 3 weeks later, in January 1988. Alan returned home from a late shift at work, where he heard an eerie sound, a sound of howling coming from his garage. The howling turned into a clear voice that told Alan to come here. On inspecting around the garage, Alan could not see anything, so he went into the garage, which was seen to be on fire. Alan, now frightened, ran to grab a fire extinguisher, but on returning, the fire was already extinguished, and there was no visible signs of damage from any fire. Alan went inside. He went to grab his lunch pail, which he set down prior to the incident, but when he went to grab it, the lunch pail was thrown across the room. After this, Alan started sleeping in his daughter's room to try and offer some sort of protection, but even Alan wasn't safe. as one night a fog seemed to appear in the room, and a voice told Alan, "You're dead." Debbie called the pastor, but nothing came of this. After this, the children and a relative of Alan's both witnessed the apparition of the supposed witch. The relative took the children and left, and after this, the bunk beds were destroyed, and the family had no further paranormal events. This incident was very unusual. The house itself did not appear to have any negative background history, and there is not much known about the bunk beds. So if you're looking to buy a new bed, ensure that it is not a second-hand one. Thank you for joining me by the campfire. I hope these stories broaden your mind into the possibilities that exist out there. If you did like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, keep the fire burning and the stories alive.